Good evening, everyone. Let's do this. Welcome to the conversation with Asghar Farhadi, one of the greatest Iranian directors in 21st century, two-time Oscar winner, the winner of so many prizes, too many to list here, and director of some of the finest films that have emerged from that country, films like A Separation, About Ellie, but also films made elsewhere in France, in Spain. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome on the stage Asghar Farhadi. Welcome to Bologna.
Thank you.
Welcome to Il Cinema Ritrovato.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, and I hope we have a good conversation about cinema.
About cinema, and we were having this conversation earlier today during lunch, that there are moments in life that cinema might seem not as significant as many other things, and we all know what's happening around us, and it's very much closer to Mr. Farhadi's world. But at the same time, it is cinema that keeps us going and keeps us sane, basically. Yeah. So we're going to stick to cinema. And let me start with a question. Oh, by the way, we have decided that whenever Mr. Farhadi is comfortable in answering in English, well, that would be in English, and for the Italian audience, there is simultaneous translation. Whenever he wants to answer in Persian, I will do my best to translate. But when the festival reaches Thursday, usually my brain reaches fifths of its capacity. So I am going to make mistakes, tremendous mistakes. Apologies in advance. When there is good or great cinema in a country, there is a great film culture feeding into that, nourishing filmmakers. And it is not very well known that Iran has been, since very early on, a sort of a place for cinephilia, where films are taken very seriously. Films are, even by ordinary filmgoers, are seen as an art form, and that has contributed a lot to the birth, growth of Iranian cinema, and the fact that over the past few decades, despite many obstacles, it has not only survived, but it has branched out into many new areas and many new territories. How much of that sort of film culture and cinephilic culture of that country has influenced you, and in which ways?
I think a lot. A lot of things that makes my shaped my taste in cinema. Some of these things comes from our culture and our language, because our language is kind of indirect language, and it is something that is in DNA of cinema. In cinema, you say something that always has a layers, and you discover this layer, and by discovering, you enjoy after watching film. And this is something that it's in Persian language, and there is a layered language, and I think the root of Iranian cinema goes back to Persian language and our culture. But I remember this country and cinema of this country on that golden age period of Italian cinema affects our Iranian filmmakers a lot. When I was young, like I was 14 years old, 15 years old, the Italian cinema was the goal. And all filmmakers, when a filmmaker made a good film, they said he did a film like Italian films. So it was kind of, compliment to that filmmakers. And the thing was, the realism in Italian cinema was something that links with all culture, and very good filmmakers, they made a lot of good films, very realistic film in a different way. Not like exactly like De Sica's film or this kind of filmmakers, but we had some very good filmmakers on that period. When I was lucky, when I was a teenager, so I watched a lot of this kind of films, and Iranian filmmakers that they made this kind of films, and it shaped my taste, and everything came from that period. So we can talk about that filmmakers, Iranian filmmakers or Italian filmmakers, that the base of Iranian cinema, the new wave of Iranian cinema comes from this effect.
Right. Since we are in Bologna, this is a place, I'm sure many of you already know this, but for those of you who don't, Cineteca di Bologna has been like the second home to Iranian pre-revolutionary cinema. If it was not for Cineteca di Bologna, many of the absolute masterpieces of Iranian pre-revolutionary cinema could not be seen at all. And here we have had the chance over the past 10 years to see the documentary movement in the 1950s, the emergence of Golestan film studios. These films have been restored and screened here, and this year we had another 2 films. How much of, we have the Italian cinema influence, we have the world cinema influence on Iranian cinema, but how much of your influences come from these masters of Iranian modern cinema who were practicing their own craft in their own way?
You mean Iranian?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot. So when I was, right after revolution, we had 8 years war. And the only films that from outside we could watch, it was from TV, black and white films from TV. And I don't know why, but they started to release some Italian films, because I remember I watched De Sica's film, Bicycle Thief on TV. And this influenced me. And then later, I understood the great Iranian filmmakers, that some of their films is here and they restored here. And I must, thanks to this institute that they did this. It's very, very important for Iranian cinema. So before my generation, the generation, very great generation that they did that great masterpieces, I read about them, and they always reference to Italian cinema. And later I understood, because on that time there was a lot of good American films in 70s, 60s, but why Italian cinema was more close to that directors, and they more talk about that kind of cinema. To me, it was because of one word. It was more humanistic. It was not black and white characterized. And even the image and the atmosphere of the film was dark, but it was full of light, brightness of life. Some people, when I was talking about De Sica's film, like Bicycle Thief, some people, they say it's too dark film. And I said, no, this is one of the brightest films that I watched. Because you look to the relationship between son and father. It's full of humanistic details between couples. And maybe because these small things, our filmmakers, they connect with this kind of cinema. And In other hand, we had a director that, unfortunately, we lost him 2 years ago, Dariush Merjoui, who is one of my favorite director in Iran, and I hope you will have chance to watch his films. And he made some films, very important films, and I feel he influenced by Fellini's film. Kind of, it's a very realistic film, but in a different way. So all these directors, that part of them, they had theater background, like Bahram Beyzai, who is kind of director who is a big teacher for all of us, and Dariush Merjoui, and some of them, they shaped this movement, this new wave of Iranian cinema, and I learned a lot about from that generation. So our generation is a following of that direction that they started 30 years before me. So there is a lot of small things that we can relate that cinema to Italian cinema. And even I was talking to one of my friends last night here. He was Italian, and I said, maybe Iran is the only country that you can find a restaurant, and the name of restaurant is Federico Fellini. We have 2 restaurants in Tehran that the name is Federico Fellini, and we have a cafe that the name is 8.5. There is a big meaning there. So, yeah, the thing that I love from that Iranian filmmakers that I continue this way subconsciously is the characterize. Always the characters very easily you can make empathy with the characters, which is today with these films that we watch always, it's very difficult to feel that characters. They are like, you feel a distance between you and that characters in the film. But on that period, Iranian cinema, Italian cinema, even American cinema in 60s, 70s, the film starts, and few minutes later, you have empathy with all characters. Not all characters, most of characters.
Since you mentioned Dariush Merjoui, and we have screened The Postman here at the festival, and who have seen The Postman at the festival? Some of you. It's playing again either, I think, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and you should not miss that film. And also, we have played another film by Mr. Beyzai again. Asghar mentioned his name, and that's Safar, which has already played. I see a tiny difference here between what you do as a filmmaker and what these old masters did in the 60s and 70s. And so speaking of the characters and the question of empathy, your characters are grounded in reality. So when they open their mouths, they talk like the way people talk on the street. They dress in the same way, and the way you tell your story, the way you cut it, everything is directed towards that total reality. It's a person that we know. Could be our neighbor, could be someone from work. However, these 2 directors and the films that are playing at the festival, everything is pushed to the limit, and that limit is like an abstraction. They have been reduced to an abstract notion of a character. The postman in Post Chi, he is both real and extremely unreal, because he transforms into an animal, basically, as well as everybody else around him. How would you explain this difference between characters who are clearly symbolic? They deal with certain allegories, and yours that are straight on. I mean, as realistically conceived as possible.
Yeah, so about my film different realism is there. On that period of Iranian cinema, in great films, you have some kind of symbolism language there that I don't believe in reality, in realism, we can use this tool. So I try to not use symbols. I use some signs, which is very different than symbols. And the other thing that is important to me is a drama. I try to drama. I like to, I don't want to make art house film for a few people. So I try to make a film for all public, and they can understand, they can discover the film, other layers of the film. And the tool that I use for this is drama. But always when you make a drama, you cannot give these details of reality of that period of time to audience. So, for example, when we watch Hitchcock's film, the drama is perfect, but the film is not a document of that time of America. Based on Hitchcock films, you cannot go and you cannot search based on that film how people in America on that period was their life. So it's not a document of that. So I try to put drama and realism together, which is a little strange. Always you have a drama, and when you make a drama, you lose reality. And when you have a reality, you lose drama. You know, some art house films are very realistic film, but for critics it's very enjoyable. But for public, because there is no story there, it's boring for them. So always I try to put this together. So I made, in all my films, the drama is based on very ordinary details. The crisis that happen in the film, and the drama is based on that, it comes from, the source is ordinary life. Very simple and worthless things makes this drama. So maybe, I'm not sure, maybe the difference between my films and that director is combination of reality and drama. When you have drama, the reality goes down. So I try to make a harmony between these two. So because this, when people all in other countries, in my country, all around the world, they think it can happen for me or for my neighbor or for my brother. So because the source of crisis comes from some small thing that is common for all of us. This is something, but that directors on that time, it was a style that they did some films, very realistic film, but at the same time there were some symbols, some characters, they had a meaning behind them that I don't believe it today. For that time maybe it was good. So I don't believe any symbolic style for being a realistic. Symbol means we show you this, and you know there is a meaning behind this, which I don't believe it. But instead this, we can put some sign. I was talking to my student today, when we are going to a trip, nowadays with the Google Map, no, but before, when I was younger, you had a map, and you are driving, and there was some signs next to the road, and you follow these signs. The first sign says go, and the second one says go to right or to left, and then you get to distance. And in cinema, we can use these signs. We put some signs, and all together, when we repeat it in harmonic way, this motif gives us a feeling, not a meaning. For example, in a hero, we have a lot of stairs. Someone is going up, someone is coming down from the stairs. And when you repeat this a lot, all these elements, all these signs together give you this feeling that is something about going up, coming down, a hero, making a hero. I believe this way in my film, this kind of using signs. But behind these stairs, there is no meaning.
You mentioned steps. One of the films we have played here, Journey by Bahram Beyzai. This is a film that uses steps to perfection. But the reason it uses the steps, because it wants to evoke different moments from film history. So it has no dramatic function per se, because he wants to remind us of Battleship Potemkin, for instance, among many other things. Do you also use this sort of devices that you are actually, instead of contributing to your narrative, you want to pay homage, cite something done in the past, another film? Do you do this sort of, put these references within your work?
Yeah, sometimes I do some references in my films, but this is not the it's not its style. If it's a kind of, funny things that I do it. The film is not based on these things. For example, in The Salesman, there is some small things like this. There is in one scene you see a poster of the film by Bergman, Shame, that I love that film. One of the most important films that I watched is about war. Very important film about war. So, and the film is about a character who is a very nice and kind and human person. And during the story, we see the process that he loses this humanity, and in the end, he looks like an animal. So, and the concept of the film was more or less same as this one. So I put the poster over there. But it's kind of doing some funny things, it's not, and so yeah, I do this, but it's not something that I try to put in my films. It's not as important than the drama and the ordinary life.
This is a slight diversion from the theme of the conversation, at least so far. But I was intrigued by the first thing you said about the indirectness of the language, which in effect contributes to the Iranian cinema finding its voice, that things being indirect. However, which that I totally agree with you, but at the same time, your own films I tend to see them as a sort of an attack on a culture which is based on indirectness. That what do you want? It's the frustration of what is it that you want, and the person will never directly express it. And I feel that your films sort of rebel against that culture that based on, well, let's keep it to ourselves.
Yeah, the culture is a huge concept, and there's not something that you all the time respect it. There's some dark points that you go and you criticize that points. In general, I respect that culture because this culture comes from many years ago, especially the language, which is very rich language. It's very this is the only language in the world. Maybe it's interesting for you to know it. I think it's the only language in the world that there is no gender in it. All language they have, this word is for woman, this word is for men. We don't have any verb, any word that's for men and woman is different. We have is equal, and the root of this comes from history or history. So I appreciate this language, but same time in some cultural things, we have some dark point that gives us this opportunity to open it and not criticize. Maybe I should is better. I just describe a situation without any judgment, and I just open for audience, and they see it and they make their judgment. So when we watch a film, there is two approach. I believe for all of people, the first approach is emotional approach. When we are watching a good film, we don't think about film, we just feel the film. And then when the film is finished, we go outside and we are ready to think. This is just the beginning. So the goal, for me, the goal is preparing a very good emotional space for audience that they go and they think. They think about these cultural things. Doesn't matter they think like me or opposite of me. The goal is thinking. So because these films are more emotional, it's kind of catharsis. It's kind of, when I go to funeral in Iran, and I see people when they are there, for a few minutes after that, they think about important things. They don't think about, stupid things. And cinema is like this.
Going to a funeral.
Going to funeral. When we go to funeral, we think about life, we think about love, we think about death. We think about important things. Why? Because it's kind of catharsis. When we go to funeral, we are enough ready to think about important things. And my films and good cinema, I think, is like this. This film make you ready to think emotionally, to think about important things.
I like that idea very much. Films as funerals, as moments of self contemplation.
Yeah.
And looking inside rather than outside. I've never thought of them that way. But does that come from actually the melancholic side of the Iranian culture? Because that's also a culture which is pretty much based on the idea that there is a melancholic undertone, and it's a culture that sort of celebrates being not exactly unhappy, but is afraid of being too happy. Am I right? I'm not talking nonsense.
I'm not sure about this because, in this story we had a lot of up and down. I cannot say two sentences about whole story. I cannot say we are happy people or we are unhappy people. It depends the situation there. But the thing is, I can say is very layered culture. As you said, we are very afraid about being too happy. We are, but the thing that I'm always thinking about it's about your Persian language. I can give you an example again about this culture. Alcohol is forbidden there, but we have a lot of words. Here, the glass of wine is glass. You have one word for the glass, or maybe two words. We have many words for the glass of wine. It's forbidden there. My daughter's name means glass of wine in a poetic way. So we have 10 words like sagar, sabu, jam, a lot of words for this. It means very rich language. And because this, maybe Iranian cinema in some period, it's very rich cinema. It comes from that culture. And yeah.
You're talking about Iran in a very, very broad sense, but of course it's a country that, like many other places, and perhaps more than many places, divided by class.
Yes.
It's a very classist society. It's not immediately visible, like accent in, let's say, Britain. It's not necessarily tied to the idea of neighborhood or city or the region that you come from, but it's a very classist society. And your films are extremely conscious about the question of class. How do you sort of marry the question of Iranian culture, this very broad notion of Iranian culture, and the question of class in your films that you dig deep into?
Yeah, it's normal. There is in each, maybe in each country, there's different classes: lower class or upper class and middle class, and it's very normal. The point is when there is a hate or war between classes,
Right.
like a separation.
Right.
You feel, I'm here because he is there.
Right.
Why I'm not there and he there? So it makes kind of violence, hidden violence, kind of fight. When I made a separation, that I was 2011, 2010, I started writing that. And so I feel this hidden fight between people. And I start talking about it, and I made that film. And now we see it. When you go to the street, you see, there is something. If you stay there, you can feel it. So because I think this is very important issue now. Different classes is not just, the subject is not just economic subject, it's some cultural things. And this is more important, you know. And the other thing is, because all this crisis, someone is from upper class today and tomorrow is in lower class, and opposite, someone belongs to the lower class today, and but by some changes in economic, tomorrow is in other class, but the culture is same. He is very rich, but his culture is not, not for that place that he is. So this is very important things in the condition that I live there. One of the important things. It has links to a lot of things, links to religion, links to politics, links to a lot of things. So when you go to this subject, so you open the window and there is a lot of materials there.
I'm curious how you collect material. Because these are very observation based. You are a very good observer of different classes, and not the door of every class is always open to a person to closely observe how the lives are lived, but you do that. How do you collect material for creating the nuances in your class portrayal?
I think we should live with people, because not in my country. I meet a lot of directors around the world in other countries too. But after they make few films, they separate their life from
the class that they come from.
Yeah, so they don't see other version of life. Right. Always they gather with same people, same conversation. Their friends are more artists. But when I'm in Tehran, always I walk in sidewalk with people. I see, just you should live with them and you should see them. And the life is so rich for materials. But we used to it, we don't see it. Kids always, they look very good. Kids, I think if kid could have these tools to make films, they could be best filmmakers, best artists. They see, if a kid comes here and asks him or her, how many blue shirt is here? Maybe they can tell you the number. But for us, we see, in a white shot. They see the details. I think that the problem is, with the students, always I'm talking about this, the problem is we don't see around. We see material, secondary material. We get all information by media, not by life. We don't talk to our grandfather. We don't talk to friends, which is very important. When there is no crisis, everything looks boring and doesn't have any worth to use it. But if something happens, you can get the worth of that materials. There is a very I give this example everywhere because I love this example. Let's maybe you read my interviews and you know this. Let's say one of my friends calls me and say, I miss you. Can we, after a long time, can we meet each other? And I say, okay, let's meet this afternoon, and we have a coffee together. And he says, I'm very depressed these days. I wish to go to a trip. And are you okay? How's your family? And then he pay the table and he goes. This is ordinary life. There is nothing important, not important materials there. But if my friend goes and in an accident, he passed away, all these moments that we were together gets meaning. So I say, why he called me after few years, and why he said, I miss you. Why I didn't call him, he called me. Why he said, I'm depressed, I wish go to a trip. Maybe he knew he will pass away soon. Oh, why he paid, why I didn't pay. So this small thing, very ordinary, gets a lot of meaning. So our job is, without any crisis, we see this layer.
Right.
And then in cinema, we find a crisis, and then we put this material next to crisis, and then we give this opportunity for audience to discover the other layers of reality.
I see. I want to ask another question. The question of identity in Iranian cinema, and a question, who are we? Like, it's been constantly posed as early as films like Khesht Ayene, Brick and Mirror, which, by the way, for Italians in the audience, it must be on Riot Player, so you can watch the film there for free. Golistan asked the question in 63, 64. And it's an ongoing thing. What do we want to do? Who are we? Like, do we belong to the West? Are we Easterners? Are we a traditional society? Are we a modern society? This constant state of confusion, which has itself contributed to great art, because art sort of nails it and asks the same questions with the sharp eye of the artist or the filmmaker. Is that question, is a part of your concerns too, or think that is not relevant anymore? Consciously,
no. But maybe subconsciously, I have same question like other. As it's not just in cinema. It's in our poetries. We have this kind of question in Hafez poetries. Hafez says, "You should help me to translate it." He has a line that I love. This is the summary of all question in the world. He says, بر سر آنم که گرز دست برآید دست به کاری زنم که قصه سرآید. This is the summary of all question in whole history.
Don't expect me as my first translation to translate the biggest poet in Persian literature.
It says, help me, it says, I wish do something that in the end sadness disappear.
Right, that's the core of it, yes.
It's a very simple translation of this, which is very, very poetic. But this is the question. Maybe I'm talking about Iranian culture, not in compare than other cultures, because I don't know other culture. Maybe other cultures they have same things, but in our culture we are very sensitive about sadness. We are very sensitive about this. We are thinking about too much, thinking about the life after dying, about death, about these things, and maybe this question comes from there. And it's in our languages too. A lot of these things you can find the effects of this concept on our language too. Yeah, but I have these questions, but it's subconsciously.
Right. Okay, I think we have about 15 minutes. Do you have any questions, or you're so knowledgeable that you can just... You have questions. Anyone raising hand? Yeah, there is a question over there. Please.
Anyway,
wait.
before that, I want I want to give my respect to some Italian director. This is an opportunity to do this. I love that period of Italian cinema. I love the film by De Sica, The Roof, which is not known outside, but this is one of his best one. And I love all Mario Monicelli films that is not known as Fellini and De Sica, and so I say this because I want to give this direction to young filmmakers, that you go and watch these films again every 2-3 months. You should watch this 100 films. It's great, and yeah, and these days we don't see this kind of films. When I watch this film, The Roof, every 6 months, 7 months, I miss this film when I watch it. It's a very simple film.
We are showing a retrospective on Luigi Comencini here, and I don't know if you remember when his TV series for Rai was playing on Iranian television, Heart.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the entire family sitting there and gently, in the background, everybody was sort of quietly crying. That film is not part of the retrospective, but anything by Comencini is equally precious. And it is, you're right.
And Amarcord, which is in characterized, is one of the best. I can talk about this film till tomorrow morning, and because when I think about this film, I get emotional.
We have the painting for the original poster of the film out there. They have to show it to you. Shall we take some questions? Or you?
No, I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farhadi. Thank you to our moderator as well. It's a very generous discussion that you've helped us share here. You've made some very great points about characters and how important characters are to any story, any drama. And one of the standout features of your film, certainly, is how each character feels like they could well be a main character. They're all very well coordinated and very human and very convincing in how they contribute to the broader drama. And one of the things I keep wondering when I watch some of your films is, when you start writing, have you already thought about all the characters who are going to make up this story? Or do you start with some key characters, some principal characters, and then do you fill up the rest of the tapestry? How do you fill up your ensemble? Thank you.
So always I don't start with characters. I start with the crisis, with the situation, because without this we cannot understand the real personality of character. To understand who is this guy, you need put him or her in this condition, and by that we feel who is her or is him. So I start with 2-3 lines of the story that describe the situation, the crisis, and then based on this I say, for this situation is better, I need this kind of character, and I put this together. And in the beginning I have the key characters I put in this situation. So if I start writing a story till 2 pages summary of story or treatment, you cannot see any specific character there. Even they don't have any name, but the situation is very clear. Again, a very cliche example that always I give this example. When you go with the elevator from first floor to 15th floor, and there is 5 people there, kid, pregnant woman, and so the elevator goes to 15, and they go out, and you don't know who they are. But if the elevator is stuck between 13 to 14 for 2 hours, with this crisis, we say, oh, this pregnant woman has this background, has this story, she's very nervous, and the kid, he is very brave person, and the other guy is very supportive. She is very selfish. So based on this crisis, stocking between 2 floors, you choose which character you need for this crisis. And each crisis needs own characters. So I start with this.
Thank you. The first row.
Hello. 2 questions. One very quick one. If you could repeat the translation of the poem bit that you said? Because I feel like some of us didn't hear like how it ended.
I should be very brave to translate Hafiz. It's a very hard job, but it says
بر سر آنم که
بر سر آنم که گرز دست برآید دست به کاری زنم که قصه سرآید.
دست بر-
Can you translate?
Yes. So I am waiting for that moment that I become able to strike at the right moment and do the thing which would diminish sorrow.
Oh, diminish.
Second question?
Thank you. Second question, you mentioned kids, children, and how perceptive they are, and especially in your movies as well. I mean, in A Separation, in A Hero, there's these children that often see more than adults do. The kid in A Separation wore the same glasses than I did at that age, so I really related to her. And I wondered, did you get to pick the actors? Did you what in those young kids inspired you to work with them? How did you work with them? How did you get those, it's a bit crass to say results, but how did you work with children and for them to be so natural and so...
It's a very hard part of my job. Working with kids is very hard, and every time I work with them in a film, I say to myself, oh, this is last time I do this. Why I did this again? But when the result comes, I say, okay, that's I should do it again. Why? Because the first thing that the kids in the film, they make is an emotional space. And they are very good observer. In my films, always they are observing the relationship between others. And they help me. They are kind of, is a second of, if you say the camera is my first eye, they are second eye in the scene. And the way that they look to others, it's kind of it looks, if I be there, I look to them like these kids. So again, when I'm writing, I don't plan to bring two kids here, one kid's there. They come without knocking the door. They open the door and they come inside. And I'm happy with this. It's a very difficult process working with them. But the thing is that the way that I work with kids, the rehearsals process is totally different than with adults. With adults, you can explain what's the situation, what you should do, and you make some exercise for them. But kids, they do a lot of play. They plays very well, but they don't believe your imagination, your play. So always I make a fake situation and I put them there, and their reaction to this fake situation is their acting. So if they are surprised to something in the film, it means behind the camera I made something that they looked at that and they got surprised. So I record it as their act. But they are so smart, and the thing is very important. They should trust the director, and they need a very emotional relationship with the director. Without that, they don't help you.
Okay, two questions, but before that, I would like to ask a very quick question following up on the question that the lady asked. What kind of relationship you have with films by the late Abbas Kiarostami?
I love his job. He's one of the best not in Iran, in the whole world. Even if you don't know him personally, and if you watch his films, you can say, I know him very well. He is one of the few directors, few artists that he is very similar to his films. He is very close to his films. So I say this memory of him. So few days or maybe 1 or 2 weeks before he passed away in France, I went to his house, his home, and he was on bed.
In Tehran.
In Tehran. He was so sick. Before going there, I was thinking in everywhere that we were together, in festivals, in some gathering in Tehran, he didn't say bye to anyone. And suddenly he disappeared. And I asked my friends, where's Abbas? And they said, he left. And I said, without any word, say bye? And they said, yeah, he doesn't like to say bye to anyone. And then when I went to his home to meet him, I saw him, he was on the bed, and I was there. And I said, so this time he will say bye, because he's on the bed, he cannot disappear, and I'm there. So I was there, and I was very, it was very difficult situation. He had some pain, and I didn't like to see him in this position. And he said, did you, on that moment, he said, did you watch my last film, 24 frames? I said, no. And he said, do you like we watch together? And I said, okay. And he asked they took a laptop, and we watched whole films together. Few days before he goes to France, and that sad, he passed away. So when we were after watching the film, suddenly he got sick, and he feels a very big pain. And I left the room because I didn't like to see. He sees me, I'm seeing him in this situation. So I went to yard, and then few minutes later I wait, and the nurse came to me and said he's not good. And I said, so okay, I prefer I leave. And then I came to my home, and when I was driving, I said, again, he didn't say bye. He was he was very artist person, and I love all his films. Even film by film, he got more younger and younger. When you see 24 frames, it looks a 25 years old filmmaker made this film, not on that age. So I respect a lot.
Thank you.
We had very, very good relationship, and when I made a separation, there was a ceremony in Tehran, and he came on stage and he said, what do you want to do after this? And it has a huge meaning for me. It had. So he's one of the best.
Who had the question? Yes, the second row in the middle.
And so let's use this opportunity. He has a documentary. The title is Hamshahri.
Yeah, fellow citizen.
You should watch it. It's a very simple documentary, but it's not very known outside. It's one of for me as an Iranian, this is one of the most important films that we should watch it.
Actually, we screened it here, not at the festival, but at Cine Lumiere 2 years ago. So it was, I don't know who remembers that, but it's about a traffic officer and conversations with the citizens.
The point is, he made this film right after revolution, maybe a few months or 1 year. And when you watch this film, you can feel what will happen soon.
Please.
As a Persian, let me ask you in Persian my question. میخواستم بدونم که شما خیلی صحبت کردید راجع به اینکه خیلی فرهنگ ایرانی روی فیلم‌های شما تاثیر گذاشته، ولی برای من یه سواله که فیلم‌های آخرتون خارج از ایران انجام دادید و کار کردید و این فیلم‌ها من خیلی به عنوان ایرانی حداقل خیلی ندیدم این رد پای فرهنگی رو. همین که یه ذره راجع به این می‌خواستم سوال کنم و همین که چقدر برای شما این تفاوت داشته و براتون سخت‌تر بوده و آینده میخواید این کار رو دوباره انجام بدید؟ فیلم‌های آینده‌تون برمیگردید توی ایران با موضوعات ایرانی، یعنی در واقع شما گفتید که توی خیابون راه میرید و اونجا متریال خودتون رو دارید. میخوام ببینم که برای شمایی که اومدید بیرون کار کردید چقدر این سخت بوده.
Okay, the question is, if I understood correctly, you refer to Iranian culture as the main source of inspiration. However, you have made your more recent films outside Iran. How do you reconcile the two? And what's the difference between the two, making films inside Iran and outside Iran? And what's the future in terms of filmmaking inside or outside?
First of all, I should say I live in Iran. Even when I go outside to make a film, if I have few days off, I go back there to stay there. So I need, this is my home with all difficulties. I love to go there. I go there, and every day I walk and I drive there. So I don't. So I'm going to make another film in France, but I prefer making film in my country. But when I can make a film based on new reality that we have in the streets today, I don't want, as I said, and I announced, I don't make film in Iran with scarf and with hijab because, it's not acceptable now. So yeah, it's my wish that I make a film in Iran, but because this situation, when I can make a film without scarf, I go there and I make film. But till that time, I cannot be, stay in just to home. So I'm working outside and I'm waiting for the time.
ولی مثلا در مورد Nobody Knows، درباره فیلماتون میخوام ببینم این سختی رو کستتون نداشتن.
Yeah, that's when you are. So she's asking, is it more difficult making film outside, the cast, and so it's more difficult for me when you are going to other country, other culture, and when you are trying to make film based on like a realistic film based on ordinary things. It's very difficult, but the cinema is a bigger language. We watched Japanese film with subtitle, but sometimes when I talk about Japanese film with a student that they come from Japan, they surprised, they say, but we didn't understand this from Kurosawa's film. How you did understand with subtitle? So the language, cinema language, is something wider, but working in other culture, in other language is more difficult. You should be more, care about something that you don't care in your country because you already knows that things. But in other culture, I'm trying to find, and when I make a film in outside, like in Spain, I go there and I stay there 2 years. I try to live with them. Or my French film in France, I moved with my family there for 3 years to get that atmosphere. But I understand that it's more easier in our culture.
I can't believe that we've been talking for more than 1 hour. Mr. Farhadi's A Separation is playing in the Piazza on, I believe, the 1st of July. So do come back, and there will be a presentation on the stage that evening. In the meantime, please put your hands together for Asghar Farhadi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.